I never thought grief could be stolen. That's what it felt like the moment I opened the storage unit where my father's will said my inheritance would be empty, silent, gone. He'd only been gone for 6 weeks, and already she'd erased him like he was never here. My stepmom, she didn't cry at the funeral. She didn't flinch when the lawyer read the will. She just smirked when I asked about the heirlooms Dad promised I'd get. My grandmother's jewelry, his old coin collection, the antique rifle he restored with his bare hands, all of it gone, sold, she said. Too much clutter, she claimed, and I needed the cash. But what she didn't know, my name was still on the deed to her house. And if she thought she could rob me of my father's memory and get away with it, she had no idea who she was messing. Before we dive into the full story, make sure to subscribe to the channel if you believe justice should always find its way. And let me know in the comments where you're listening from. I read every single one. If you've ever had someone try to steal what's rightfully yours, hit that like button because this story, it ends with the kind of revenge that even karma would envy. My name is Natalie. I'm 29 years old, and I need to tell you how my stepmother stole the last piece of my father I had left and how I made her lose everything. This story isn't just about money or property. It's about grief, betrayal, and the moment you realize the people smiling at you across the table might be the same ones who'd stab you in the back if they thought they'd get away with it. I was never close to my stepmom, Linda. She entered our lives when I was 15, 2 years after my mom died of cancer. My dad was lonely, heartbroken, and frankly, too tired to see the warning signs. Linda wasn't cruel at first, just cold. She didn't try to bond with me, didn't ask about my school or friends. She seemed more interested in redecorating our home and attaching herself to my dad's life like a barnacle. I tolerated her because he loved her, or at least he needed someone and she filled that void. Over the years, I grew up, moved out, and made a life of my own, but I never stopped visiting Dad. We had Sunday breakfast traditions, long walks, and heart to heart talks over coffee. He never said anything bad about Linda, but there were times, quiet pauses, side glances, when I knew things weren't perfect behind closed doors. Still, he stayed with her, and she stayed with him, especially once his health started to decline. When my father was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, everything changed. I was at every doctor's appointment. I flew home from work for weeks at a time. I was the one holding his hand through chemo, helping him get up the stairs, managing his meds. Linda? She showed up for the appointments when it was convenient. She made a big deal about needing rest and complained about how exhausting it was to watch him deteriorate. She'd post filtered selfies of them on Facebook, captioned cherishing every moment, and then disappear for spa weekends. I wanted to scream. During one of our last conversations, my father gave me a worn brown envelope. Inside were legal documents, his will, a letter, and a copy of a house deed. Read it after, he whispered. And Natalie, be smart. Protect what's yours. He passed away 3 days later. The funeral was a blur. Linda wore designer black, sobbed loudly for attention, and somehow made herself the center of the room. I sat quietly with my grief, clutching the letter he left me, feeling like I was watching a play. When it was over, she hugged me tight and said, "He was so proud of you. We're still family, okay?" I didn't believe her for a second. A week later, I opened the envelope properly and read everything. The will was clear. My father left me all of his personal belongings, a trust account he'd set up, and, most surprisingly, partial ownership of the home he shared with Linda. He'd bought it before they married, but added her to the deed later. However, in a quiet stroke of brilliance, he added my name too and legally stipulated that no sale, mortgage, or transfer could occur without my notarized consent. It felt strange, almost like a secret final chess move. I didn't understand why at first, but I was about to find out. Just a few days later, I stopped by the house to pick up some old family photos and mementos. Linda met me at the door, all smiles, and let me in with fake warmth. She poured wine, made small talk, and said something that made my stomach turn. "I'd been going through some of your dad's things. I thought it'd be too painful for you." That's when I saw it, the empty shelf where his watch collection used to be, gone. The box of old letters he wrote to my mom, nowhere in sight. The hand-carved chessboard he made in college, missing. She'd already started cleaning house. My house. I calmly asked her about it, and she shrugged. I thought you wouldn't want clutter. I've been selling some things to charity auctions, to honor him. My hands went cold. I asked where the rest of his things were, his guitar, his journals, the photo albums. Her eyes flickered. I'll have to check, she said. Maybe the storage unit. That night, I drove home and cried for hours. Not because of the things she'd taken, but because I knew exactly what was happening. Linda thought she'd gotten away with it. She assumed the house was hers now, that I'd quietly disappear, and that no one would ever question her claim to everything my father left behind. She didn't know what was in the envelope, she didn't know what he'd done to protect me, and she definitely didn't know what I was about to do. I made one decision right then and there. I was going to get back everything she stole from me and then some. After that awkward dinner, I didn't confront Linda. I didn't argue, didn't accuse. That would have been too easy for her. Would have given her a heads up. Instead, I acted exactly how she expected me to. Polite, a little distant, but emotionally fragile. She seemed pleased with herself, even told me, "You're always welcome here, sweetheart," as she walked me to the door. I smiled, but inside I was already moving, already planning. The next morning, I took the envelope my father left me, the one I hadn't fully opened yet, and made an appointment with the lawyer listed at the bottom. His office was tucked into an old building downtown, the kind with creaky wood floors and framed degrees lining the walls. Mr. Callahan was a thin, silver-haired man with gentle eyes and a voice that sounded like gravel smoothed over with time. He greeted me like he'd known me my whole life. We sat down and I told him who I was. He immediately nodded. Your father was very clear about making sure everything was protected for you. He didn't want confusion. He pulled up the official records and showed me what I already suspected. My name was listed on the deed. Legally, I co-owned the house. Linda had no right to sell it, move out belongings, or change anything without my signature. And yet, she'd already done so much. Just when I thought the situation couldn't get any worse, Mr. Callahan glanced at his screen and asked me casually, "Are you aware the house is currently listed for sale?" My stomach dropped. Excuse me? He turned the monitor so I could see. There it was, a real estate listing. Photos of the house, an asking price, even a scheduled open house this weekend. My childhood home, my father's home, and mine. She'd put it on the market behind my back. For a full minute, I couldn't breathe. This wasn't grief or desperation. This was calculated. She hadn't waited a full 2 weeks after burying my father. She was ready to erase him, profit off of everything he left behind, and toss me out in the process. I clenched my jaw and looked Mr. Callahan straight in the eye. I want to stop the sale, and I want to make sure she never gets away with this. From there, we moved fast. He helped me file a formal motion to block the sale, sent cease and desist notices to the realtor, and drafted a letter stating that the house could not be sold without my signed consent. I also began documenting everything: photos of the empty shelves, screenshots of the listing, even old emails my father sent me that proved what he wanted. Meanwhile, I kept up the act. I texted Linda with generic, polite messages. "Hope you're doing okay. Let me know if you need help organizing anything." She responded with over-the-top sympathy and performative grief. She even offered to let me come by and pick up any sentimental things before they get packed up. I wanted to scream, but I didn't, because she had no idea I was building a case. The day the listing was taken down, I got a furious voicemail from her. Gone was the gentle tone, the grieving widow act. In its place was pure rage. "You had no right to do this. Your father wanted me to have that house. He told me himself. You're selfish, just like your mother, bitter and small." That was it. The moment I knew I wasn't going to just protect the house, I was going to make sure Linda lost everything she tried to steal. And she still had no idea how deep this was about to go. The next week, I kept my distance. I didn't respond to Linda's angry voicemail. I didn't answer her follow-up texts either, the ones where she tried to guilt me with phrases like, "This is what your father would have hated, and you're tearing this family apart." I let her scream into the void because I was busy preparing my next move, and I wasn't going to give her a single clue until it was too late to undo anything. Mr. Callahan called me into his office again, this time with a quiet excitement in his tone. "I think you should see something," he said. He handed me a folder containing documents I'd never seen before. One of them was a revised will, signed and notarized, dated just 3 months before my father passed. In it, he left the house jointly to me, with no mention of Linda. And more than that, he included a handwritten letter sealed with my name on it. Opened it with shaking hands. If you're reading this, it means I didn't get a chance to explain everything in person. I know Linda won't take this well, but this house was always meant to be yours. She has her own investments. Her name was never on this deed for a reason. I've watched you grow into a woman who stands on her own. This is yours, not because I pity you, but because I believe in you. Love, Dad. I sat there in Mr. Callahan's office and cried, not because I was sad, but because I felt for the first time since the funeral like I wasn't alone in this. My father had protected me. Even when he couldn't be here, he'd made sure I had the truth. And now I had the tools to fight back. A few days later, I contacted the real estate agency handling the listing. I asked to speak with the broker assigned to the property and told him that the house was not legally allowed to be listed, sold, or shown because I, a co-owner, had not agreed to any of it. His tone shifted fast. He apologized profusely and promised to pull the listing immediately. Linda's little scheme was unraveling in public. That same night, she showed up at my apartment. I hadn't seen her face to face since the funeral. She looked different, angrier. She pounded on the door like she owned the building. When I opened it, she pushed past me without asking and stood in the middle of my living room like she was about to conduct an interrogation. "You think you're clever?" she spat. "You've embarrassed me. You've made me look like a liar to people I've known for decades." I didn't say anything at first. I just stood there watching her unravel, letting her words hang in the air like smoke. Then I calmly handed her a copy of the new will. Her face drained of color. You forged this," she snapped, though the fear in her eyes betrayed her. "It's notarized, filed with a lawyer months before he died," I said softly. "You were never on the deed, Linda, and you knew that. You thought I wouldn't fight back." She didn't respond right away. She just stared at the paper, then at me, and for the first time, I saw her mask fall completely. No more fake kindness, no more tears, just someone who realized they were out of moves. "You'll regret this," she muttered, voice shaking. But the truth was, I already had. For years, I regretted not standing up for myself, not speaking up, not calling out the people who took advantage of my silence. That regret was gone now. Because this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about reclaiming what was mine. After that night, Linda disappeared. No more calls, no more messages. It was almost eerie. I expected retaliation, some sort of legal action, maybe a dramatic scene with lawyers or realtors showing up at my door, but instead, silence. For a moment, I wondered if she had finally realized she'd lost. But deep down, I knew better. Linda wasn't the type to retreat. She was the type to reload. So I took the first step. I met with Mr. Callahan again and told him I wanted to exercise my legal right as a co-owner of the property. He nodded, already anticipating where this was going. "We'll proceed carefully but firmly," he said. With his help, I had a new plan. I wasn't just going to block Linda's shady attempt to sell the house. I was going to beat her at her own game, and I was going to do it legally, on paper, and right in front of her smug face. Turns out Linda had never even bothered to check the full deed details. My father, in his usual quiet wisdom, had filed it in a trust with both of our names and added a clause that gave me full authority to make property decisions should a conflict arise. She had no idea that by trying to sneak around me, she'd handed me all the power. I listed the house through a private broker, one Mr. Callahan personally trusted, and we moved fast. The market was hot, and the offers started rolling in. I chose a buyer who wasn't just interested in the house, but in closing quickly. Within 2 weeks, the deal was nearly done. I signed the papers with a strange mix of satisfaction and sadness. This had been my childhood home, my father's sanctuary. But I realized now that holding on to the bricks and wood wasn't worth the pain of keeping Linda tethered to me. It was time to let go of the place and take back control of the story. When the sale closed, I sent Linda a final certified letter. It was short, formal, and devastatingly clear. The house had been sold. The new owners would be moving in within 30 days. She had until then to vacate the property or face legal eviction proceedings. No emotion, no arguments, just facts and consequences. She didn't reply. But I heard from the neighbors. Apparently, when she got the letter, she had a complete meltdown, screaming in the front yard, ranting about betrayal and stolen futures. The irony of it almost made me laugh. She'd spent so much time trying to erase me from my own family's legacy, only to be erased from the very house she tried to steal. I didn't show up when the movers came. I didn't need to. My closure didn't come from watching her leave. It came from knowing that for once I had made the move. I had taken the hit, stood back up, and landed the final blow, not out of vengeance, but out of self-respect. And that felt better than any revenge I could have dreamed of. In the days after the move-out deadline passed, I drove by the house one last time. It felt strange, like walking past a version of myself I didn't recognize anymore. The lawn was freshly trimmed by the new owners. The porch looked repainted, and there were toys scattered in the yard. A new family had already started making memories there, and for the first time in a long while, it didn't hurt. It felt, right, like the house had been reset, scrubbed clean of the rot Linda had left behind. I never heard from her again, not directly, but word traveled. She tried to tell people I'd blindsided her, made her homeless, stripped her of everything, but the truth had already started to leak through the cracks in her performance. Old friends of my father, neighbors, even distant relatives, they knew. Some of them had quietly reached out to me after the funeral, whispering that they always suspected Linda's intentions, that she'd changed my father, isolated him. Some even admitted they regretted not stepping in sooner. Apparently, after losing the house, Linda tried to sue the real estate agency, the buyer, and even the city for allowing the transaction. All of it failed. My attorney made sure the paperwork was airtight. She had no legal standing, no documents, no proof of ownership, just rage. And rage doesn't hold up in court. The irony is, she could have had something. My father left her a modest inheritance in the will, enough to live a quiet life comfortably, but that wasn't enough for her. She didn't want enough. She wanted control. She wanted to erase me and rewrite the story in her name. And in the end, that obsession cost her everything. As for me, I didn't walk away rich. After legal fees, taxes, and splitting part of the proceeds with the trust, I had just enough to pay off my own mortgage and take a long overdue vacation. But I walked away clean, clear, free, and more than that, I walked away with my dignity, with the knowledge that I hadn't sunk to her level. I'd protected what was mine without lies, without manipulation, without cruelty. There's a photo of my dad I keep in my kitchen now. He's standing in front of that old house, wearing a tool belt and a ridiculous sun hat, pretending to look serious while my mom snaps the picture. I look at it sometimes and wonder what he'd say if he saw how everything played out. Maybe he'd be sad about the way things ended, but maybe, just maybe, he'd be proud that I finally learned how to stand my ground. And that, more than anything she ever tried to take from me, is the legacy I choose to keep. Some people think revenge means becoming cruel, becoming like the person who hurt you. But that's not true. Real revenge is peace. It's reclaiming what they tried to take, your voice, your worth, your future, and choosing to move forward without dragging their darkness with you. I didn't destroy her. I just stopped letting her write the story. If you've ever had someone try to rewrite your life, to steal what's yours while smiling to your face, I want you to know you're not alone and you're not powerless. Protecting yourself doesn't make you cold, it makes you brave. And sometimes the quietest victories are the ones that echo the loudest. Before you go, let me ask, have you ever had to take back something that was stolen from you? Share your story in the comments. I read every one, and I promise this is a safe space. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you and subscribe for more stories like this. Stories where justice doesn't just knock, it walks right through the door. Thank you for listening to mine. And remember, your story is still being written, and the next chapter might be the one where you finally win.